Hey everyone, I'm Jordy, and I spent the last 2 days clearing all of the heroics multiple times on the Wrath beta, and I wanted to share what we learned and what you can expect. First, are heroics hard? Definitely not. For a lot of these, some of us weren't even 80 and we blasted them with little issue. Now, there are some things you're going to want to know, and I'll go over that later, but for now, suffice to say, I really hope Blizzard thinks about retuning these because at the moment, they're pretty face roll, and as we collect more gear, they're going to get even easier. Now, speaking of gear, early on in Wrath, you'll be trying to run every heroic every day in order to maximize your emblem income to get these awesome Priebus purples. These include tier 7 robes for 80 emblems, tier 7 gloves for 60 emblems, belts, weapons, etc. For instance, on my Disc Priest, I'll be looking to pick up the badge neck for 25, the trinket for 40, the belt for 40, the offhand for 25, and then the chest and gloves for 80 and 60 respectively. So in total, you're looking at about 270 emblems or more for weapon users, and that doesn't include the blue PvP gear, which is another 195 for all 5 pieces. Now you're looking at getting about 51 emblems a day, so you'll need to do everything for almost 6 days to get all of those pieces. Something to keep in mind is if you can zone in to heroics before level 80, it might be worth to start your world tour of them at around level 79. They're very doable at that level, and you don't want to miss a day's lockout. Now, this might be a beta only thing. Some people are saying that they remember you needing to be level 80 to enter heroics, but yeah, on the beta, you can zone in before 80. All right, now I'm going to go over each heroic super quickly. I won't go into every single ability here because there's so much that just doesn't matter and you can pretty much ignore it. So if you're interested in knowing each ability of each boss, make sure to look them up. Real quick, this video took a lot of time to make, so if you like this kind of stuff and want to see more or anything else, definitely like this video and hit that sub button because it helps me a lot. If you've got any more ideas for stuff you'd like to see me cover on the beta, let me know and I'll be sure to get to it. Okay, on to the heroics. Alright, first, Azjol-Nerub. First boss is a joke, just make sure you don't pull all the trash with him at the same time unless you're going for that achievement. Second boss, also make sure to be careful not to pull everything at once, again, unless you're going for an achievement. If you do, make sure you don't AoE because every time a spider dies, Hadronox heals. And the last boss is literally the worst boss in all of these heroics. Holy fuck, it's annoying. The stomp he does was bugged out, but the tank should be able to avoid it if he moves out. Make sure when he's submerged, you run to the ramp to pick up the range guys because their poison bolts hurt. Alright, moving on to Anh'Kahet The Old Kingdom. This is 5 emblems, great instance. The first boss, Elder Nadox, is pretty much a joke, just kill the ads quickly. Second boss, Prince Taldaron, also a joke, spread out and avoid the fire thing. Free your friends from the blood-sucking thing. The heroic only boss, the mushroom Monitar, is pretty easy. Just make sure you clear the room of the ads and stand near the healthy mushrooms while avoiding the poisonous mushrooms. The fourth boss, Jadoga Shadowseeker, also pretty easy. Make sure you save your cooldowns to the sacrifice ads so it doesn't reach her. And finally, Herald Volage it's just a fun fight. Save your cooldowns for the copies of your buds and remember to kill whoever you like least first so they know how you really feel about them. Next up, the Culling of Stratholme, 5 emblems. Now this is the new instance in the Caverns of Time, and you can take a port in the Violet Tower area. This instance is a bit slower, but it's fun and flavorful, and is a recreation of my favorite campaign from Warcraft 3, so it's always fun to do. The first boss, Meathook, is a joke. If your healer gets stunned, it can be kind of spooky, but not so bad. Solrom of the Flesh Crafter does a curse. Make sure to remove it. Easy peasy. Chrono Lord Epic just falls over. Some slowing debuffs that didn't really do much of anything. The time boss that drops the Bronze Drake every time you kill him. No group should really have trouble with this. If you do, not a big deal. You can always try tomorrow. And finally, Mal'Ganis. If your healer gets chain slept, it can be a bit rough. Just try to call it and make sure to pop cooldowns if that happens. Okay, on to Violet Hold. This place kind of sucks. It's slow and boring and exactly how we all remember it being. 3 emblems. The first 2 bosses that spawn are random. We actually had trouble with Zevaz until we kited him to the top of the room and just stayed as far away from the orbs that he spawns as possible, but once we figured that out, it was pretty easy. The second boss was Morag. I don't actually have footage of this guy or Cyanogosa, the last boss, but both were super easy. Cyanogosa was like a copy of Azuragos from Vanilla, occasionally teleporting everyone on top of her, so just move away when she does that. More face roll. Alright, Utgarde Keep. 3 emblems. Fun instance, again, not hard. Prince Keleseth is exactly how you remember it being as you were leveling. Just make sure to attack the Frost Tombs. The pair of bosses, Dal'Ron and Skarvald, make sure you stack on them as Skarvald charges, and both times I've done this fight, I've gotten insta-gibbed. So fun. Still easy. And finally, Ingvar, who drops the 100 previous crossbow. Again, easy. He does an AoE stun, so make sure your tank pops something so he doesn't get clapped. Next up, Utgarde Pinnacle, 4 emblems. The first boss, Svala Sarogard, was fun. It's definitely fun to troll your friends and watch the sword descend over their head and threaten not to kill the channelers in time. Next up, Gortok Palehoof. The ads he spawns before him actually hit kind of hard, so keep an eye on your tank, but they don't do anything super difficult. It's mostly tank and spank. After that, Scotty and his blue Protodrake Groff, which drops the blue Protodrake. This was kind of bugged on the beta for us, but I'm sure it'll get fixed. We had to use all 3 harpoons in one go rather than do it one at a time because he'd evade bug in the air. Either way, that's part of what you need to do for the achievement, so no big deal. Just avoid the breath and collect the harpoons, blast him when he's in range and kill him. And finally, King Imran, super easy and drops a nice sword for your tank. He AoE stuns, use your stun canceling abilities and trinkets to keep blasting. Easy boss. All right, onto the Nexus 5 emblems. There's actually a bonus boss here in the ice area called Commander Kolerg, who honestly didn't do anything of note other than dropping a nice pair of boots for me. Thanks, Commander Kolerg. Moving on to Grand Magus Telestra. She does these mirror images and casts a bunch of spells. Make sure you interrupt them. She also does a black hole-esque move like Entropius did in Sunwell Plateau. No big deal. She kind of falls over. After that, Anomalous. He was pretty simple. He spawns a little arcane rift that you need to burn down to keep pumping damage back onto him. After that is Ormarok. He hits kind of hard when he frenzies and does a ground type thing that does like lines of ice around him. Just avoid it. And finally, Karastraza. You've just got to keep moving or you get frozen in place. Cast, move, easy. Also, Karastraza, thank you for the nice mace. Poggers. Whoa! Whoa! Now onto everybody's favorite, Occulus, the dragon flying instance. There are 4 emblems in here. The first boss, Dracos the Interrogator, summons everyone onto him and does a little Mechanar-esque thing, sending out little robot things that cast Arcane Explosion around them. Just avoid them. Now you get onto your dragons. The easiest setup is 1 green, 1 red, and 3 bronze. You want to fly around killing the trash packs, which unlock Varos Cloud Strider. There's a lot of random area damage on the platform here. Just avoid it and kill him. Then you run around chasing the next boss while you kill the trash he spawns, and you'll eventually get to Mage Lord Uram. He does frost on the ground, stand behind the pillars while he casts his big spell in the center of the room. And finally, the Dragon Pilot boss, Lay Guardian Aragos. As far as we could tell, it looks like your gear doesn't really affect the stats of your dragon, but yeah, you want your red Drake person to tank, the green will heal, and the bronze will trade off stuns, and you blast him until he dies. GG. Next up, Gundrak with 5 emblems. Woo! Alright, the first is the snake boss, Slodron. Watch the ads that spawn, make sure you pull him off your healer, and he does a poison nova around him after some time. Make sure to run out and just be careful, it will hurt. After that is the Drakari Colossus / Drakari Elemental. The Colossus does a Mortal Strike, and the Elemental throws shit onto the ground. Just make sure you don't stand in it. After him, we got to Murabi. This is the one boss where you try to interrupt so he doesn't turn into the mammoth. As his HP goes down, the cast time for the transformation gets faster and faster, so make sure you're communicating who has each interrupt. If it does go off, it's not a big deal, you just don't get the achievement. After that, there's Ek the Ferocious. This is the heroic only boss. It's super easy. There's an achievement to finish the instance with the Ek spray on you. So if you're going for that, make sure to stack and shout spit at him.
Make sure you get spit on you on your achievement.
He didn't spit on me.
Spit on me.
Where is he? Get the spit. There we go. Spit.
Oh man. Finally, Galdara, he whirlwinds, so get out for that. And then he'll turn into a rhino and impale people on his horn and charges. Make sure you're popping whatever you can to survive these things. It's not too bad. Maybe one of the harder bosses on Heroic, but still doable. Moving on to Drak'tharon Keep, 4 emblems. Big old castle on the Grizzly Hill Zuldrak border. The first boss is Trollgore, who hits pretty hard, and he will cast Corpse Explosion on a couple trolls that spawn after you kill them, so avoid their bodies once they die. Next up, Novos the Summoner. He'll stand in the center of the room and summon a bunch of ads that you need to kill, so kill them and eventually he'll activate and begin spamming Frostbolt and Blizzard. Super, super easy. Following him, King Dread. I know my hunter wants to tame this guy, but he may be a bit big. He hits pretty hard and he casts an AoE Fear, so make sure your tank is ready for it. Not too bad. And finally, the Prophet Tharanja. Kind of reminds me of Hakar. Eventually, he will turn everyone into skeletons, and as far as I can tell, doesn't really do much of anything during this phase, so spam your 1 key and win. Also, after this boss, you can drop down behind him to run out of the instance, but this was causing chain DCs, so maybe don't do that. Just hearth out. This will probably get fixed, so no big deal. Next up, my favorite instance, the Halls of Lightning. Congrats, you're back. 4 emblems. Okay, so like before, General Bjarngrim hits pretty hard, so be careful not to pull anything extra with him as he's padding around. The second boss, Volkan, was kind of bugged, but yeah, still super easy, not a lot going on here. I think he's supposed to spawn Molten Golems and smash them to explode for damage, but none of that was working, so he kind of just falls over. You'll see it when you do normal and you're grinding your levels. The third boss, Ioner, puts a lightning nova on one person, so make sure you move away from other people if that happens to you, and then he'll vanish and spawn little lightning orbs that you need to run away from. Eventually, he'll reform and you just kill him. And finally, Loken. He does more damage to you the further away from him you are, until he starts casting Lightning Nova, which does a bunch of damage the closer you are, so you just need to move in and out accordingly. And finally, the last instance, Halls of Stone for 4 emblems. This one isn't linear, but you need to kill all 3 bosses, I think, before the last boss is spawnable. So first up, Crystallis, pretty easy, exactly like Grohl actually. Run away from each other when he does the shatter thing, unless you're trying to kill your friends, which is occasionally funny. It will get old. Second boss is Maiden of Grief. This is like the Maiden of Virtue from Karazhan. As she's casting her thing, you stand in the void zone, so it will break the incapacitate and can keep pumping. Super easy. The third boss, Tribunal of Ages, isn't really a boss. It's kind of an annoying gauntlet thing that's about protecting Bran as he unlocks the secrets of the Halls of Stone, while the faces shoot lasers and stuff at you. It's all really easy. The trogs and mobs that run in are all just fall over, and avoid getting hit by the lasers. They don't even do that much damage, but avoid it. And finally, the last boss, Sioner the Iron Shaper. He does a bunch of lightning things and has a lightning shield that can cause some damage to melee attackers. Just avoid the lightning on the ground, blast the boss, and like the rest of these instances, easy. And that's it. Like I mentioned earlier, if you do the dailies and all of the bosses, you'll rack up 51 emblems of heroism and 2 emblems of valor, and a lot of reputation. I was able to get exalted with Argent Crusade after just a day and a bit of instances, so you should be able to finish all of your reps and gear in about 5 to 6 days of doing all of these. Alright, that's it for me. Thanks so much for sticking with me on all of these. Blizzard mentioned that they might be thinking about buffing these heroics to make them more relevant to Wrath, which in my opinion would be great. If you agree, let me know why in the comments, and if you don't, definitely let me know in the comments. Thanks everyone. See you in the next one.